It happened shortly after I purchased a house with a garden. My husband, Tom, and mother-in-law, Mary, both grinning, declared my in-laws would move in with us. They are moving in too. If you don't like it, I'll make my son divorce you. If she came, her nasty daughter would surely follow. They knew I hated this and did it anyway. The daily harassment would continue even in the new house. I shuddered at the thought. No, I don't want to live with you. What? You don't seem to understand your position. Her eyebrows shot up as she pulled out divorce papers from somewhere, and my husband's part was already signed. Her face showed she only cared about getting the house. Their plan had worked perfectly, which was terrifying. I struggled to hold back my laughter. My mother-in-law, seeing me trembling with my head down, looked triumphant. I quietly signed the divorce papers, packed my things, and left the dreaded house. I got a barrage of calls from my ex-mother-in-law on moving day. Have you realized yet? She demanded to meet and talk. That's exactly what I wanted. I would meet her and put an end to this myself. I made thorough preparations to confront them and headed to the final showdown. My name is Sarah. I work at an advertising agency. My husband, Peter, was introduced to me by Max, a manager at a newspaper company. As someone in a weak position, I couldn't refuse Max's offer. I was 29 at the time, and after 6 months of dating, I married Peter due to his persistence. I ended up cursing myself for making a poor decision at such a crucial moment. I think my ex-mother-in-law, Hannah, intended to deceive me from the start. She seemed gentle and kind, but her attitude changed as soon as I married. She dropped the mask of a reasonable older woman and revealed her true colors as a cruel mother-in-law. Hey, Sarah, what are you doing? I told you to weed the garden after cleaning the dishes. Not a day passed without her shrill voice echoing through the house. I felt exhausted every day and could barely manage a sigh in response. After the wedding, I agreed to live with my in-laws at Peter's insistence. His father had passed away, and Hannah had been struggling with a leg injury for years. He begged me, saying he couldn't leave his aging mother alone in the old house. But when I got there, I saw Hannah walking around just fine. She claimed educating a daughter-in-law is a mother-in-law's duty and treated me harshly every day. Tom was no help either. Whenever I suggested living apart, he made excuses and avoided the issue. He was always doing whatever she wanted and never stood up for me when she scolded me. Yeah, my mom has quite a temper, huh? Stop grinning and help me. This is really hard for me. After getting married, I began to feel intense anxiety and depression. I found myself crying unexpectedly or feeling nauseous for no reason. After consulting a specialist, the doctor diagnosed me with an adjustment disorder. The thought that every day spent at my in-laws was affecting me negatively was truly unpleasant. Despite my feelings, she continued to make unreasonable demands. Don't be lazy just because it's your day off. Have you finished cleaning the room? You haven't gone shopping yet, have you? Make sure to check the discount stores before you go. Please, Hannah, please don't shout at me. I have a headache. I'll do the cleaning and shopping later. Don't give me that. When you're told to do something, you do it immediately. You're the daughter-in-law, aren't you? A daughter-in-law is not a maid, I wanted to retort. Her demands often involved the house itself: clean the gutters, replace the wallpaper, fix the splinters in the pillars. The in-laws' house was very old and falling apart everywhere. It creaked whenever the wind blew. Each time, she would urge Peter to get a new house. This place is a rental, you know. We're renting it cheaply from an acquaintance. Just once, I want to live freely in our own home. Don't you think so, Peter? I do, but we can't afford it on my salary. A house of our own is just a dream. Hannah grew frustrated with her useless son. Of course, she took out her frustration on me: cook, clean, weed the garden, take her to the hospital. She didn't care that I was exhausted from working full-time. It was no wonder I developed an adjustment disorder. I couldn't help but think that every day. 6 months after moving in with my in-laws, a woman who made my miserable life even worse arrived. Peter's sister, Sophia, came back after her divorce, bringing her child with her. She said her ex kicked her out, saying he didn't want to see her face anymore. Well, it's my fault really. I left my kid unattended and slept with my husband Senior. What kind of ethics does this woman have? Seeing my horrified expression, Sophia smiled slightly. Sophia, who looked just like Hannah, acted just like her too. She refused to do any housework and made me clean her room as well. It's only fair, right? I'm raising a child. You wouldn't understand since you haven't given birth, but it's harder than it looks. So, thanks in advance for your help, Sarah. Sophia didn't work. She lazed around all day, her childcare half-hearted at best. She lounged on the sofa, doing nothing. Her behavior was particularly bad on weekends. She'd leave her young daughter with me and go to the arcade. Sophia had some bad friends from her rebellious days and would sometimes start drinking in the afternoon with them. I wished she would at least help with some of the housework, but Sophia did absolutely nothing. She was the kind of woman who would do anything to get money for fun. This is what happened one day. Sophia handed me a drawstring bag, and when I looked inside, I saw my dad's cufflinks, ring, and vintage lighters. What? What do you expect me to do with these? Figure it out. Sell them and make sure you get a good price, okay? The belongings of my late father. These were supposed to be keepsakes, yet Sophia casually told me to sell them. I felt a wave of sadness. The thought of her using the money to go to the arcade made it even worse. Unable to bring myself to do it, I explained the situation and handed the bag over to Peter. I don't know what he did with his father's keepsakes, and frankly, I don't want to know. When Sophia first returned, many things happened. My belongings frequently went missing after she arrived. Around that time, I also discovered that John was probably having an affair. A friend who worked at a different advertising agency happened to see him in town on a weekend. John was walking arm in arm with a flashy young woman. I was furious when I heard the story. I'm working hard from morning till night, even on weekends, and you're out having fun with a young woman. Unbelievable. This is cheating, right? Who is she? Tell me the truth. It's not cheating. She's just a worker from a massage parlor. And how is that any better? You shouldn't be going to such places when you're married. Sophia laughed hysterically at our argument. Hannah seemed exasperated but didn't strongly scold John. According to Hannah's logic, if a husband goes to such places, it's because the wife isn't devoted enough. Getting upset over something like that is embarrassing. The problem is you. If you were more devoted to John, this wouldn't happen. I don't agree, Hannah. Isn't that a bit too unreasonable? This is the norm in this house. Besides, going to places like that or having an affair shows a man's prowess. A wife should forgive such things with a big heart. What was normal to them was absurd to me. Forgive visits to such places and affairs. There was no way I could do that. My frustration only grew. I couldn't just stand by any longer. Determined to change this unpleasant situation, I decided to take action. Hannah and Sophia remained the same day after day. They treated me like a servant. The two of them lounged around like sea lions on the sofa or floor, raising their voices when they were hungry. Hey, why isn't lunch ready yet? It's already noon. Stop dragging your feet, Sarah. You're so slow, it's annoying. Then why don't you make it yourselves? I've been cleaning the garden, airing out the carpets, and shopping with no time to rest. Don't talk back. Know your place as the daughter-in-law. I wasn't even allowed to voice my opinion. I was utterly fed up. I wanted a divorce immediately, but if it were that easy, I wouldn't have been struggling. John was introduced to me by Max, a manager at a newspaper company. I was indebted to my boss, Arthur, who also asked me not to do anything that would embarrass him. Hannah knew this and often used it against me. I was completely stuck between a rock and a hard place. For a while, all I could do was endure. Then one day, John's affair became undeniable. That friend from the other agency got concrete evidence. The first stage of my preparation was complete. I needed to plan my next move. About a month later, I think it was, Sophia spread out a housing catalog on the dinner table after dinner. From every angle, it was clear that these were items meant for us. I had put in my bag. Look at this, Sarah was planning to buy a house. Wait, did you rummage through my bag? Why? Why would you do that? Just be quiet. Oh, it's a nice house. A bit in the countryside, but still. Hey, Sarah, you should have discussed something like this with me. I had my eye on a house with a garden. As Hannah said, it was in the countryside but looked quite good. I had already visited the place several times and met with the real estate agent. When I admitted this, the three of them became very interested. What? How far along are you in the process? Are you going to buy it? It's cheap and spacious. Not bad at all, Peter. A man's got to be bold. Ah, well, a house with a garden, huh? That's a big decision. If you decide to become the head of your own household, I'll support you. I'll even help a little financially. Wouldn't you like to leave here and live with Sarah in your own place? Before I could say anything, she was already encouraging Peter. How insincere. She had no intention of letting me go so easily. When I asked whose name the house would be under, John furrowed his brow. I'm the head of the household. It'll be in my name, obviously. Then can I proceed with the purchase? We'll buy this house, and the two of us will move out, right? All right, I've decided. I'll buy the house. Go ahead and move forward with the arrangements. John finally made a firm decision. Hannah and Sophia both praised John for his decision, but I didn't miss it. The two of them exchanged a knowing smile. A few days later, just after purchasing the house with a garden in the countryside as planned, Peter and Hannah, both grinning, made a unilateral announcement to me. They are moving in too. What? But you said we'd live there alone. After thinking it over, we decided to live together. You're not going to say no, are you? If you refuse, I'll make John divorce you. I wonder what Arthur would think of that. There it was, what a cowardly move. If Hannah came, Sophia would surely follow. I shuddered at the thought of daily harassment continuing even in the new house. No way. I absolutely refuse. I have no intention of living there with you. What? You don't seem to understand your position. Her eyebrows shot up, her face red with anger, veins bulging at her temples. She pulled out divorce papers from somewhere, and Peter's part was already signed. Her face said she didn't care about anything as long as she got the house. If you're really going to refuse, then sign here. All right, I will. I'll sign. Let's get divorced. I've had enough. What? Hey, Sarah, are you sure about this? Peter, leave her. A useless woman like this is just going to make you angry. You're young. You'll find a new wife soon enough. Such harsh words. I quietly signed the divorce papers. She looked triumphant. She had no idea how I felt. My plan had worked perfectly, which was terrifying. I struggled to hold back my laughter. A few days after I moved into my new apartment, I received numerous calls from Hannah. Checking my calendar, I realized it was indeed true. Today was their moving day. So she's figured it out, I thought, the incessant ringing typical of Hannah. Ignoring them didn't help, they kept coming. Finally, I picked up due to her persistence. Hannah didn't even greet me, she just started yelling, "Sarah, how could you do this? What kind of house did you make us buy?" "Hello, Hannah, calm down. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Don't play dumb. This house. You knew it was defective when you bought it, didn't you? Didn't you?" "That's right. The house I chose had issues. The ground was unstable, often causing the land to sink. Even a new house could have doors and windows that wouldn't close properly after a few years. There were old mining tunnels nearby that caused the problems. However, the locals knew this. They built their houses on stable land. Only clueless newcomers fell into this trap. I used this problem-ridden house to trap those three. It was tough to find a reasonably priced defective house, even with the help of a real estate agent. I also arranged for Sophia to steal the real estate catalog from my bag. I had deliberately placed my bag in an easily noticeable and stealable position. Unaware, they fell right into the trap and moved in. It was hard to keep from laughing when I signed the divorce papers. I wanted to tell them everything, but I couldn't. I played dumb. A defective house. That can't be right. There must be some mistake. What is with that attitude? So fake. Just come over here. What? No, honestly, I don't ever want to see you again. What? What did you say? There was no way I wanted to see that unreasonable family again. I told her I wouldn't meet them even if they paid me. Then John took over. "Sarah, please think about our situation a little. I could say the same to you, Peter. Did you ever think about my feelings?" "No, you didn't. I was always isolated. I'm sorry. I'll apologize. Just tell me where you moved to." "Why would I tell you that? If you showed up, I'd have to move again. I want to cut all ties with you." The conversation went nowhere. Eventually, Hannah and the others started making even more outrageous claims. They said the divorce was invalid and that we were still family. I had 2 colleagues sign as witnesses and submitted the divorce papers to the city hall. No way. How unreasonable could they be? Anyway, just meet with us once. We need to settle this. Please, Sarah, just once, let's settle this properly. Hannah and Peter insisted on meeting and talking. Even if I refused, they would surely call again. I had no choice. I decided to meet them and put an end to it myself. "Fine, I'll meet with you once." "Thank you. I owe you one. But I'll choose the time and place, okay?" I couldn't risk being ambushed or followed. I needed to have the upper hand to ensure my safety. After making careful preparations, I arranged to meet the 3 of them at a cafe. I arrived at the designated cafe 20 minutes late. Hannah and Sophia were already furious from being made to wait, and John had a strained smile on his face. As expected, they were predictable. "How dare you keep your elders waiting? It's so disrespectful." "I don't want to hear about respect from you. So what do you want? What's with that attitude? It's infuriating. We're stuck with a defective house because of you. Take responsibility." "I told you, I don't know anything about that. You decided to move in on your own, didn't you?" She faltered. She couldn't deny that. Hannah and Sophia had willingly moved into the defective house. Their previous home was being renovated by its owner, so the only place they had to live was the defective house. If you're done, I have something to say, Hannah. I will be suing you for damages. Prepare yourself. What damages? Suing. Why? What did I ever do to you? Tell me clearly. You mentally tormented me to the point of developing an adjustment disorder. I showed them a copy of my medical diagnosis. The three of them stared at it intensely. Hannah's eyes were especially wide. She probably never imagined I had been seeing a psychiatrist. You never thought about how much your words hurt others, did you? It was very painful for me. I felt nauseous and cried a lot. It was really tough. That's because you're weak. You were a lousy daughter-in-law and deserved it, isn't that right? That's part of it. Calling me a lousy daughter-in-law repeatedly is slander. Slander is punishable by up to a year in prison or a fine of up to $3,000. What? That's ridiculous. What's ridiculous? Hannah didn't understand the gravity of her actions. She had no idea how sinful her behavior had been, how harmful her verbal abuse was. You also did other things that are punishable by law. You threatened me multiple times, saying you'd tell Arthur about the divorce. That's extortion. Wait, isn't that a bit exaggerated? It's not exaggerated at all. By the way, extortion carries a penalty of up to 2 years in prison or a fine of up to $3,000. I won't back down on this. All right, wait a minute. Peter stepped in. Her eyes were sharper than usual. She had the look of a former delinquent, as if saying, I won't be intimidated by your threats. What is this? Scaring my mom by taking advantage of her ignorance. Do you have any proof of these so-called slanders and threats? Yes, I do. I've been recording everything. Recording? Yes, I had been recording with my phone's voice memo the entire time I lived at my ex-in-law's house. I had plenty of audio recordings. I also had data extracted, specifically of Hannah's abusive language. Submitting this as evidence would undoubtedly confirm the charges of slander and threats. Did you really think I'd just take it? It's not just Hannah, Sophia, you're also guilty. You'll be held accountable too. What? Why me? What did I do? Think about it. Haven't you committed any crimes? Or are you saying you haven't caused me any trouble? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. Sophia insisted she was innocent. I showed her the screen on my phone. Sophia's face turned pale. No wonder. It showed her rummaging through my bag, the ugly scene of her searching the contents while glancing around nervously. What's that? How did you record this? Because my belongings frequently went missing after you arrived, makeup, accessories, clothes, bags. I set up a hidden camera. This is awful. How could you do that? You're just a daughter-in-law. Unbelievable. Who's the one overstepping boundaries here? Let me inform you about the penalty for theft, up to 10 years in prison or a fine of up to $5,000. I'll be contacting the police. Sophia's mouth opened and closed. She wanted to retort, but she couldn't. She looked completely helpless. I had kept track of all my missing items. Knowing the exact extent of the damages would make it easier for the police and lawyers to act. If I was going to do this, I'd do it thoroughly. I was determined not to let these three off the hook. Finally, it was John's turn. He shrank back under my glare. If there was anyone I couldn't forgive the most, it was him. I believed a marriage was about mutual support, but Peter, you saw things differently, didn't you? From start to finish, you were always my enemy, weren't you? Enemy? No, I never meant that, not at all. Please believe me. Even today, I was trying to mediate as much as possible. Sure, enough with the lies. I don't need your mediation. John was a cowardly man. He always sided with the stronger party. He had always been with Hannah and Sophia. Even now, he was trying to placate me to save himself. If he had been a slightly better man, maybe I would have stayed married. If he had said, let's move away and live just the two of us, I might have done that. The name of your affair partner, I believe it's Emma. What? How did you? How did I know? I had a friend investigate. I have a friend who's good at that. I even have pictures of you and Emma entering a hotel together. Look, here they are. No, don't show them. Don't show them. John hurriedly tried to stop me from showing the screen. He didn't want his mother and sister to see his affair. But why should it matter? Their morals and ethics were already broken. They were a family of like-minded people. I put my phone and the copy of the diagnosis back in my bag. I had shown all the evidence I needed. Hannah, John, and Sophia seemed defeated and drained of resistance. If they did anything careless, they'd be reported to the police. They seemed scared. But unfortunately for them, I was fully intending to consult the police regardless of their actions. I believe the police will come by eventually. Don't try to run, it'll only make things worse. And make sure you don't follow me, understood, Sarah? Don't be so cold. We were married until recently, remember? Yes, honestly, I think marrying you was a huge mistake. I feel so relieved we're not a couple anymore. If you follow me, I'll press charges for that too. So be ready. Don't wait outside my office. Don't contact me unless it's absolutely necessary. I made a few simple agreements with the three of them and left the cafe. Even after I left, they sat there looking dejected. You can't stop people from talking. The news of John's divorce quickly spread at his company. The reasons, his infidelity and mistreatment of me, spread along with it. As a result, John faced significant cold treatment at work. After all, the person who had introduced us was Max from the affiliated newspaper company. Naturally, John lost his trust and was viewed harshly. Unable to endure the hostile environment, John eventually quit. He struggled to find new employment, and his relationships with his mother and sister became strained. Peter reappeared in front of me about a year after our divorce. He called out to me as I was leaving work, and I turned to see a shabby-looking man standing there. Peter, I barely recognized you. I know, people say my face has changed lately, he replied. He seemed to have gone through a lot, understandable. Hannah and Sophia were convicted and fined. I had claimed alimony from Peter. They must be struggling financially now. They still had to pay off the mortgage on the defective house, so things were tough. How are Hannah and Sophia? They're alive, barely hanging on. They're both working now, they have to, or we wouldn't survive. They always say they want to go back to the old life, wanting to return to relying on my and your income. They haven't changed a bit. Cutting ties with them was definitely the right decision. I thought he might retort, but he didn't. John sighed deeply and apologized to me. I'm really sorry for everything. I deeply regret it. I was a fool. You were right. I should have always been on your side. I must have been out of my mind. Your whole family has been out of their minds from the start. Don't be so cold. Please, let's live together again. I'll cut ties with them for real this time. You're the only one for me. Oh really? Too bad. I'm seeing someone else now. Even if I wasn't, I'd never take you back. When I said that firmly, John collapsed to his knees. But a pity performance wouldn't work on me anymore. If I were less well-mannered, I would have spat on him right then. I left John there and went home. He never contacted me again. The information came from the real estate agent who had helped me. Hannah, Peter, and Sophia's lives had fallen apart. They blamed each other for their poverty, worsening their relationships. Neighbors heard shouting and glass breaking from their house almost every night. They berated and tormented each other but couldn't break free. It was nothing short of hell. They are quite isolated in the community, with no one wanting to interact with them. Eventually, they will likely sell their unsellable house for next to nothing and end up homeless with just their debts. I can clearly picture the three of them huddling together, cursing each other under the cold sky. Someday I'd like to see their miserable state firsthand, after they've hit rock bottom. Meanwhile, I'm living a blissful life that seems almost unreal. It's thanks to my new partner, the one I mentioned to John. He's a successful salesperson at a major trading company, a mature man with a gentle nature who respects others' values, and he's also divorced like me. We're planning to have a small wedding soon. My first marriage was an incredibly bitter experience. Even now, I sometimes tear up remembering the hardships. But even during those times, I feel warmth and comfort when I lean on him. This is where I belong. I took a long detour, but I finally arrived. That's how I feel because of the hardships I've endured. I can now be kinder to others. I want to use my experiences to live a positive and bright life. That's how I feel these days.